All right, jumping right in here, we're going to be doing some outlining. I have already gone through the book, kind of scrolled through, flipped through. Again, like I said briefly in kind of the intro call we had, I went through chapters and did some little doodles. I'd love to be good at storyboarding someday, but for now this will do. But what was helpful about it is I broke it down chapter by chapter and was like kind of key moments. So what I'd like to do now is put that all in this Google Doc over here, and eventually we can start thinking about it in terms of our sort of 8-beat structure. A lot of this I get from Michael Jamin's screenwriting course. So we have kind of the famous first, second, third act. I think most people have heard of that one at this point, but you can break it down further from there. So the first inciting up to the inciting incident, the first act, I should say, can really be seen as show the problem, tell the problem / movie poster moment. I think this is even maybe even the still in Act One, but sometimes they split it like 4 for Act Two, and then Act Three is definitely the last two here. So for showing the problem, then telling the problem, I think that's pretty self-explanatory in terms of introducing your characters and what's going on. And then movie posters, kind of like it's just what you think. What is the moment that you would kind of have in the trailer? Movie poster moment. Act two, we're really getting used to things, getting settled in, raising the stakes, of course, leading into our Act three. Bobby runs away, is what Michael Jamin called it. Kind of seems like this type of thing always happens before our build to the end. And the angle of this can be different. So if it's a tragedy, this might be like a peak moment and then the final fall. And in a comedy, as it were, where something has a happy ending, this might be like rock bottom before things recover again. Set piece, big set piece. I think he also referred to this one as like the block party, and then finally joyful defeat. So I've actually been developing a couple different projects. I made it into a grid. I love making math into anything, making anything into math and structure and grids and organization. This has been really helpful. So I have another screenplay I'm putting into this, and I'm also just developing an original story that I want to be like perfect as it fits into this, and then see if that actually produces like a really good, strong story. I think a lot of the trappings of it then can vary as long as the structure is really solid. So eventually, I would like whatever we're putting in here to fit into something like this. But now that I'm kind of talking about it, I want to see if anything just comes to mind uh, out of the gate here. What might be some thoughts I have? So, showing the problem, telling the problem. One could argue that the problem is, gosh, well, I guess the problem can almost be restlessness. Showing the problem with Yancey telling us his story and telling the problem of like we're gonna go out to the new land kind of a thing. Movie poster moment hitting the new town, I would think. And then fun and games, getting settled, raising the stakes, could be some death, some race relations. Bobby runs away. Gosh, our main character Yancey runs away so many times. Set piece, I think, could probably be. Some of these might be kind of close together. Set piece, I think there's this great moment where they're like unveiling a statue that's supposed to be representing of the great pioneer. They think they're going to make it about her. Turns out they do this big dramatic thing about Yancey, who in the end is just this kind of loser out in the wastelands. So I think those could kind of go together for our set piece and joyful defeat, but that will make for a pretty quick act in terms of the story. I mean, if she's 25 chapters and now referring to the book as a she, I think that's just like the last like two. Let's see. Sunbonnets triumphed. Her succeeding with the newspaper, of course. But in terms of an actual set piece, like a visual, I'm still thinking in terms of the visuals. I think the statue. Do you think suppose he'll do her as a pioneer woman in a sunbonnet? Talking about the statue. So to me, that's chapters 24 and 25 right here in Joyful Defeat. I'll have to think about this. That'll be a very quick ending and a big act two, but there's a lot that's going to happen in that act two. So I think as I understand more, this is something I was talking about. Like I want to keep coming back to theme, keep coming back to character to think like, am I staying? What's the big picture here? I can get into the details and make a really detailed outline here, which I'm going to love. But am I staying true to one through line? There should be across the whole thing. So, is the theme of the whole story restlessness? I gave the example in our other talk about like the telling Pam like it tells me you stick around. The women that stick around and do sometimes the unglamorous work that still needs to be done while the men are off adventuring. Kind of having the juxtaposition of the gendered roles, I think, will be really interesting throughout as a theme. So show the problem, tell the problem. I think you could kind of have, honestly, let's just do like a rough version of this really quick. I think you could have something like dinner at the Venables. So this is a big scene where he's telling them all about this exciting new thing in the West, and they're like, oh, and he's like, no, really, like we're gonna do this. Tell the problem. Honestly, I think this could be actually going out west. There's some great tension moments there as they start to do it. Or this could be, what did we just realize her name was? Mother Bridget. Bridget and going out west. I want this to wrap. I don't know formatting in this app as well, but well, we'll just move it up a little bit. So Mother Bridget and going out west. Movie poster. I mean, that's got to be arriving in town. Maybe or you know what that is? Arrival through Pegler shooting. Pegler at church. I know it's a lot of things, but we'll get to what all of that means. But movie poster moment is gotta be getting into there. Fun and games. This is gonna be settling in. Settling in, women's club, the newspaper, like fun and games. Newspaper, maybe even Yancey leaving the first time. I mean, I guess that gets into kind of raising the stakes. So we'll start with that. I think this is going to be a really important thing that the movies would cut out is like her experience being left behind and all the great things she gets done. And let's see, raising the stakes. Really, I mean, Yancey leaves. It's a big one, but he does it multiple times, so I got to be able to kind of pace those out. Raising the stakes. Bobby leaves. I want this to have a big moment here. Death of Isaiah, the black character, and honestly, like conflict with her son and daughter. I don't know how much I'm going to get into the daughter side of things. They certainly cut a lot of it in the movie, but they have little bits. Set piece, I think, would be the statue, really. Accolades for her and the statue. And then joyful defeat being sleep for Yancey. So this is when she finds him on the outskirts of town. Just there's this great line kind of in the middle where she's like, she just kind of started to resolve herself, is that the phrase, to the fact that every time she sees him, he's going to be a little more tired, a little more gray, a little more worn down, and a little less attractive, and all these different things. And that's just something that she kind of has to make her peace with, and expect less and less of him. But another thing he says is like, as long as my name is over the doorway for this newspaper, I'm still the editor. And there's a line where it's like, and even then she knew like she's never going to take his name down. So she still loves him very much. But so let's see. Mother Bridget and going out west. Arrival, Pegler at the church. Fun and games. Yancey leaves. I have to keep track of like how many times he leaves and what different things. Because then he comes back. He comes back a war hero. And he leaves and returns to what's the name of to Dixie. That's a big moment. Bobby runs away. Death of Isaiah. Conflicts with son and daughter. A lot of things then have to happen in here to lead up to our son and daughter. Death of Dixie. Heartbreaking. And I really wish I could make these rap. I don't know how to do that. Can I scrunch it? Hey, simple enough. Okay, can move that back down. Yeah, this is shaping up to be a pretty quick Act 3, but I think that's okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Okay, so now what I want to do is put these things all on the side list here with my outline, and then maybe come back and start filling in some of these like actual beats in here. I think that'd be good. So for now, I wonder if I can make all these like a little bit bolder. Yeah, that's hot. Okay, so now getting in here, let's see what we have chapter by chapter. So chapter 1. I don't know if I want to write chapter every time, but I do want a really good outline. This is why I switched off of pages, because it made it such a pain to do like one of the, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, let's get some pictures in here. So for one, we have storyteller, charlatan. Those are the beats that or the notes I wrote up on the top, which I think is perfect. Charlatan. Charlatan, a lot of A's. Okay. So that's him saying, like, you guys wouldn't believe what it was like on this run. And then I can choose whether or not to have some flashbacks to it or just have it be kind of really locked in with them at the table. We get to be introduced to kind of the icky venerables that we were seeing a little bit of in the last video with chapter 12. So that's all that chapter 1 really is. It's the introduction of a lot of things. We get to be introduced to how much she's so in love with him. Their son's already born. I'm trying to think, is that something they changed in one of the 2 versions? Yeah, in the second movie, he's born, I think, in the movie later, once they've already arrived. She gets pregnant for the first time. But in the book and in the first movie, Sim's already born. Anyway, and we get introduced to Isaiah, the black character. So anyway, 2... Oh, I flipped forwards. This is her quotes about how people didn't really get her book. So let me flip a different way here. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is still really much like getting into his storytelling about the hardy women and escaping the Venables. He wanted to be free of them, no more be handled and talked over and peered at, and her saying, I will go. So that's all, that can all go together. So I'm going to say 1 and 2. Storyteller, charlatan. We got lots of intro to Sabra, Sim, Yancey, Venables, and Dixie. Ooh, and Isaiah. All within that first chunk. But it's still kind of like one scene. Like I said, dinner at the Venables can still be that first bit there. Excuse me. So then from here, then, we're no longer going to call that 2. We'll call that 3. Let's see what we got. Oh, man, this is kind of confusing how I did this. Got to flip kind of backwards here with my Blues Clues folder. Notepad thingy. All right, chapter 3, Mother Bridget, essentially. Mother Bridget. This is a great scene where Sabra's like, I'm going out west, it's gonna be great, and Mother Bridget kind of like sobers her up a little bit, and in some interesting ways. Like, she's very much like, oh, I've dealt with the Native Americans, and this is what they've done in the past. And but there's kind of a funny moment at the end where she's like, well, that's not really why I came here. Like, oh, there are a lot of great themes that are introduced here too. So let me find the line. Saber's like, no, that's not really what I came to talk to you about. Like, I really thought you were just going to kind of applaud me, and then, you know. She was a little bored by this. She had not come out to the old mission to hear about the Indians. She'd come to say farewell to Mother Bridget, have a fuss made over her, and to be exclaimed over. Wasn't she going to be a pioneer woman, such as you read about in the books? Love that. Okay. But then there's also a great theme of Mother Bridget saying, there's no such thing as new country for people who come to it. They'll bring along their old ways and bits of things and make it like the old as fast as they can. So Mother Bridget's kind of a big, I think, thematic point. So when we find out she died, like just before Sabra got to see her again, I think it's going to be hopefully like, oh man. Because like it says, it's like she really wanted to tell her about everything she'd gotten done. So I think that's going to be an important, cute, thematic scene. So that's 3. Let's see what we get to into 4 then. And intro to kind of some racism too, I guess, with Sabra. Okay, 4. Okay, this is interesting. 4 and 5 is basically the trip. So as I have here, going out west, that's 4. So we have leaving home. We have this run-in. Isaiah stowed away with them. Immediately starts helping out. Sim goes missing. That's a big thing. They run into these bandits that Yancey pretty much lets go and says like, he's just a kid. And then later that comes back and she's like, man, you were so casual about that, but now with this other person, you're more serious about it. Like, what's going on? So that's kind of a point of contention. But there's also a great point where he teaches her how to like actual, because she's leading her own set of, I'm guessing, horses and trailer, you know what I'm talking about. And he kind of teaches her how to do it to be a little more loose, so she's moving with the animals instead of like. So it's just this little moment where you can see her kind of like learning the ropes physically and metaphorically. So I like that moment. I'll probably include that in there. So yeah, I think that's a great summary of. Again, I'm not trying to compliment myself. Anyway, that's 5. So 4 and 5. Okay, and all right, continuing on, I gotta flip backwards. We have got Arrival, shot in the ear, kissed by a cowboy. I might cut, but it's this moment where she's just like having kind of a really flustered day, and this cowboy runs through the street and sees her and is just like, he literally runs up and kisses her and like rides off, and she's just like, so I don't know that it necessarily like means anything to the bigger story that it needs to be kept in. It is a cute moment. So I guess I can make a note of it, but I don't think I'm necessarily like I don't think it's necessarily going to hit like a beat here on. Or I guess I'll use my little mouse, a beat over here, but we'll see. So that's 4 and 5. So 6, we've got Arrival, Shootout, and then we're really just building into this whole church scene that I think is going to be a big set piece. But I guess that's him getting settled into town. And then 8 and 9 is Pegler in the church. So I am going to have to cut back a lot with this, especially with this kind of movie poster moment. So let's see if we can do that. Let's say 6 to 9. We're getting settled in. Let me flip back here. Oop. Flip forward, flip back. We've got basically a rough first night, I think, will be like a first scene where she's like, how could you possibly bring us to a place like this? I hate this. And he's like, this is the best. I'm going to go to have a drink. She's like, I'm not going to raise my children here. I think of the SNL sketch with like the boxer's wife. She's like, I'm getting the kids and I'm going to my sister's. That's what she wants to do here. So, I'll just call it shot in the ear. I love that they keep the scene very faithfully in the first movie where he's kind of, they're all sizing each other up in this new town. He's asking around about the last newspaper guy that got murdered, and everyone's like, there's a line where he's like, stick to your lawyer and quit asking around. You got the gift of gab, like, buzz off. I don't know if I just click a box if I say that word on YouTube. So, and then so at one point they're like jeering at him. I think they shoot his hat off, so then he turns back and he shoots this guy in the ear, and then immediately like the wife gets involved and it's like, you got, like, she kind of goes after the guys being like, shame on you, and then he's really embarrassed. He's like, how could you do this to me? They're gonna think that I can't fight without my wife. And she's like, oh, don't worry, darling, you shot him in the ear very nicely. And then she also just has this moment of like, what even is my life right now? So I'll probably keep that, and I'll probably keep it pretty faithful. I just don't want to spend too much time before our movie poster moment, because I feel like I got to understand where that inciting incident is, because it really should be around page 18. I want to know the inciting incident is linked to our big theme, so that's going to affect how much time I give before, how much time I give after. Because you could kind of say like, oh, it's sort of like here when she's like, I will go, is that our inciting incident, or is it when she finishes talking to Mother Bridget and she gets all these themes of they make it like the old make it like the old as fast as they can, that type of a thing. Is that our more of our 18-minute mark, or is it the arrival? I mean, that's more of an event. That's not like an idea or a theme, but a thing that happens. So I don't know. So let's continue on here. Shot in the ear. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not even going to write down the cowboy thing right now. We'll see if I change my mind about that, but we've got stuff to get through. So setting up the print shop, I think that's important. There's a funny moment where she's like, oh my gosh, women would have gotten this done so much faster. So that's why I'm definitely keeping that in there. And that's, I think I said this in the last video, but that's the line where she's like, but the author is like, but she loved her husband too much to even think that thought right now. 7. What else are we talking about here? She loved the smell of the print shop. So that's something where she actually enjoys this job, and builds it into this big success by the end of the movie. So I want it to be like she fell in love with it when it was this rinky dink little thing, and then she's sticking with it even to her old age. There's a line I'll have to see. I think it's literally in the book from the movie that I saw more recently, where they're like, someday we'll look back on this and laugh, and she's like, what do you mean? To her friend Saul. That I can't forget either. There is a character who's Jewish. His name is Saul. He's in throughout the whole thing. Not a central character, but consistent character. And little moments of him being people being anti-Semitic, him getting harassed in the street, and he has this like moment of solidarity with Dixie, who is like the town harlot, who I also want to focus on more. So I need to not forget Saul. Um, so hopefully I have at least I think I have that in my notes here so I can make sure I don't miss the beat. So let's see here. Um, there's all to do, and we're here to do it. Instead of being back with your dead alive family. That's nice. Um, some points of conflict. Too feminine in love with her husband to say so. I found it. Okay. Anyway, that's stuff in 7. So we can have some arguments there. But yeah, so now we're asking around about Pegler. And this was good too, because when he eventually shoots the guy that killed Pegler, we'll get that introduced here with whatever his name is. Um, um, okay. I think I want to keep a scene here about asking permission for church, because that's when he goes to the gambling hall place, and he's like, hey, is there any chance? And the guy's like, yeah, sure, come on, we'll have church at the gambling hall. And he has this big painting that he just got that's a very lascivious painting of a woman. And Yancey has a line where he's like, in very fancy language, he's basically like, it's an insult to womanhood, but the guy thinks it's a compliment, and he's like, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? So that could just be kind of I want to come back to the theme too of Yancey just like using fancy words that are so unnecessary in the moment. And there are multiple times where Saber's like, don't you quote the Bible at me right now, don't you quote your things at me, I can do it too. And so they have some fun pitter patter with that. Anyway, so asking permission for church will be a funny little scene. And then heading to church, I think is going to be a really important scene too, because we have Isaiah. He kind of mimics Isaiah. He mimics Yancey on the way to church, and he's kind of strutting in his best version of his cowboy clothes. And Saber's kind of mortified because the whole town is laughing, but Yancey's like, "Are you kidding? This is like he's just." Well, honestly, it's because the kid loves Yancey so much and wants to look like him. And but then he sends him home being like, you got to protect home in case something bad happens. So then Saber's kind of like, are you sending him away so that he goes away, or is there actually something that's going to happen? Is our house going to catch on fire? And it'll build into this moment where there actually is some intensity later. So worry about home. And then we have church and shooting Pegler's killer. So I can look up his name, but whatever. Oh, there's a great little moment here too, where they're like, let's sing a song. Does anyone know any songs? And then they end up singing one, and he's like, oh, it's a little secular, but we'll go with it. And it's like, I think it's called Who Were You at Home, which I think is just a great idea, to have them singing together. Something it's like, oh, we've all left home to end up in this new place. So I think that's really leading up into our movie poster moment here. So I almost want to like color. Maybe we could let's do some color coding, shall we? Show the problem. Let's Roy G. Biv. Let's try it. Or, you know what I should do instead is make the box. Can I make the box a different color, and then this is still going to be, yeah. Okay, well, I'll keep it like that for now. Fun and games. I kind of want to do like, well, I guess this should be green. Raising the stakes. Maybe I'll have this be blue or I kind of probably want it to be purple. No, but I need these to be. Okay. We'll spend all the time deciding on the perfect colors. Set piece. I want to be able to match these pretty closely in the other if I can. Dark blue, and then raising the stakes. What am I missing here? Let's end on black. Purple, kind of our finale, and then we can do blues here. Okay, I think that works. Dark blue, light blue. All right, so by this token, we can do some color matching here and see that showing the problem, I think, will be this classic big scene here. Telling the problem here. This is so exciting, guys. Look at the progress we're making. Oh my gosh. Okay, and then movie poster moment's gonna be all this in yellow. Sorry, I hate having so much text in yellow, but I love colors more. You can give it a back color to help it be visible. Okay, then moving forward here. What comes up in 10? This is a man's town kind of thing is what I wrote down. Women's club. Anti-Semitism. So this is where we get a scene with Saul. So this is going to be kind of this is our settling in, so to speak. So this is chapters 10 to 11. Let's already change out our colors here because we know this is going to be green. So we can do green. We can do none. We're going to have settling in. No, I'm doing it on the next line. It's dashed over. Sorry. Settling in. Women's club. I think that's great. She's just trying to, just like that line with Bridget, make it like the old as fast as they can. And I like the juxtaposition too of like the things that she's trying to make happen, to have this semblance of dignity and normalcy in her life are easy for the men to look at and think is so silly. And there's this key point where she's had like the worst day ever, and her husband stumbles home drunk, and she's like, I didn't make dinner. I've got this new pudding, because for her it's like it's all the rage, this new gelatin and fruit. And he looks at it and he's like, huh, gelatin. And he literally walks out and doesn't come back for like 5 years. It's just like, anyway, it's this whole thing. So that kind of idea of like, yeah, his man activities are so much more important while he goes out and get drunk with his buddies, but sure, make fun of her and her gelatin and fruit or whatever it is, or marshmallow or something like that. So yes, it is silly, but also she's trying to have a piece of culture, a thing that is her own, and it's easy for him to laugh at. And he makes fun of her ruffles when she comes in with the new, she's like, it's all the rage from the World's Fair in Chicago and stuff like that. So I think there could be these little points of like kind of rubbing up against each other, friction. So settling in, women's club, love it. I had also written about anti-Semitism, so sorry, Saul. But I think that's important to introduce Semitism. Oh, and with this, we can talk about Dixie, because women's club, you know who's not invited is the Painted Ladies. So I want to give them their due. I thought it'd be really fun. Soul, that's his name. To have like this moment I picture where like the Painted Ladies, like, cause, well, in the book there's a moment where they come down the main street and they're in their carriage and they're all dressed to the nines, and they come in like they're always like color coordinated, and I just picture like Doja Cat music playing while they're just like frou-frouing down the street, and all the other ladies are like barely looking out their windows being like, oh god. So we have to definitely introduce that our girl Sabra is against the lifestyle of these women, but they're a big part of the town, and there's a huge part of the Wild West history, which is that it's built by women that worked in the kind of did sex work, and then were able to invest in all these other important industries to build up these towns in ways that maybe men had neglected on their own. So there's a good Adam Ruins Everything about it that I feel like is kind of my inspiration there. So I can do some more research from that end. Anyways, moving forward, so that's some points that I have written here for 10 and 11. What goes on? So we're still kind of fun and games, classic. The newspaper, I guess I started introducing to, since I wrote that up here in fun and games. arrival. So technically, I guess I could say, and if we're sticking to dash slashes, intro, which is important because Pegler was the newspaper guy, so we can get those all queued up. So in the later one, in the second remake, they have it be this whole thing where the guy dies on the road and it was his newspaper, so they take it over. So I wonder if they take out, what do they even do with any of that shootout stuff? I don't remember with the new one. I'll have to rewatch them now that I have it all kind of in my head from the book. Anyways, 12, back to Wichita. See, our whole last video is about this chapter, and I didn't even put it in my outline. Women's club. Chair made a weird noise. Raising the stakes. I think this is still going to be kind of end of fun and games, maybe. Back to Wichita. I think that's where that would fit in. Let's scrunch this up a little bit. How exciting. Look at this filling out. And then once I finish on the right, I'll come back to the left, see if I can put in any of these beats. Okay, with a little more specificity. So 12 is back to Wichita, which I know I'm in the wrong line. I'll fix that. And we just pretty much wrote that, so that's great. With Bridget, tying up Bridget there. Man, I feel like all these notes are just gonna be like death of, but it is an important beat, I think. What's up, Bridget? Okay, so that's 12. 13, we have the kid and the shootout. So I'm not as interested in this, honestly. The kid's shootout. She's coming back home. She's worried for her husband, and he has a sweet moment where he's like, Saber, please make them go away. I'm so tired. And she kind of has this mothering moment with him. So, and then there's a cool thing where he, let's see, we find out that he wasn't actually keeping up with the newspaper while she was gone, and then he turns down money reward. He's like, I don't take money for killing a man. So we get a moment to see him as a very noble, heroic leading guy. But then he leaves. So I think, so this is that building restlessness. Oh yeah, we have the hatches in his gun too. When he kills the Pegler killer, he like puts the hatch. She's like, yeah, see, does that mean you killed 5 other people? I think he has 3 on one gun and 2 on the other, something like that. It's a great little visual. Why don't I I'd probably still fit into settling in, but this is the kind of stuff I want to remember when I'm actually writing it, so I'll add just more details in the gun. Okay, so 14, we have restlessness. There's a chance for him to be governor, and then not. I think he tries to put up the Jewish guy for governor, and then everyone's like, yeah, right. So it depends on how much I'll get into kind of the politics of that. I don't want to neglect that character. I guess I'm just personally more interested in some of the other characters and their dynamics. I think he has a little bit less pull towards the theme, but I also don't know if I'm just have a unconscious bias here or something that I need to be careful about. So, just, yeah, I want to make sure to give his character his due. I want to do that right. But how much to go into with what level of detail is, of course, the 2 hours traffic of our stage. So, restlessness, Yancey leaves. And I see that as kind of the end of fun and games. I think that's a great end point because now it's no longer fun and games. Raising the stakes. Oh, okay. So I put that at the beginning of this one. Potato. Let's see. What's chapter 15 starting with? Some stuff about Dixie Lee, but not the death of Dixie Lee yet because I think that's a while later. Yeah. Okay, so, but that's all still in 14, right? 15. I don't necessarily want to split. Yeah, because it's like, oh, she'd never see him again. I think that's great. So we'll start with 15 here at the beginning of Raising the Stakes. I think that's perfect. We'll do this lighter blue, which actually matches, not perfectly, but still well enough with our outline over here. So obviously we got 2 different apps going. Can I make them all black back? Do I like that? What do we think? Do we like it? Maybe I like it. Okay, that's actually really hard to read, but it's also kind of cool. Can I put this in dark mode? I don't think you can. I wish I could. I love dark mode everything. All right. I'm going to keep it like this for the moment to break up some of the white, but I also think it's kind of hard to read, but it's fun. Okay, so 15 here, we have got some stuff with Dixie Lee, and the lady's getting mad about it. We have the tragedy of Isaiah and Anita, who was their Native American housekeeper. Isaiah, who is this black boy that leaves, the original house with them, who's like basically an enslaved person for them, but this is still after the time of slavery being legal, which was such an absurd sentence. But he basically functions as kind of their housekeeper as well, and he gets this Anita girl pregnant, and they are both murdered by the Native American tribe. So great tragedy there. And there's this moment where Sim's like, when is Dad coming back? And when is Isaiah coming back? And she's kind of like, ooh and ooh. And she does not share. So I think that's a heartbreaking thing, but I think it also matters because then later when she's a little pissy about her son marrying someone, I think from this same tribe, she has a little bit more basis. Although as we know, she starts out from just kind of straight up racist family. So anyway, that's something that none of the movies deal with. They cut all this out, and I don't think that we should. So that's going to be 15, raising the stakes for sure. Then oh, this is a great set piece. So he's going to come back a war hero, and she's just like, hi. And then he immediately gets involved in what she was doing to try to get Dixie Lee kicked out of town, and he goes on this big speech for her trial to defend her and get her exonerated. So, but it's also I think it's gonna make for a great scene because he goes into all this big speech about how like she's this poor unfortunate soul, to the point where even Dixie Lee should be watching this and be like, okay, but he gets her off, so great. But I want that to be a moment where, like in the movies, we're all supposed to be like, yeah, good job, Yancy, hero coming in. But I also kind of want us to be like, this guy's a little bit full of shit. It could be helpful, and I think there's even a line like that where he's just like, yeah, maybe I'm full of shit, but maybe it also is the right thing to do, or it helps, or has some truth to it, or something. So anyways, we'll continue on from here. So that trial is definitely a point where his wife is really pissed off at him. She's like, I've been working on all this stuff. You come up here 5 years out of nowhere, and now you're just going to insert yourself. So that's why I remember when I read this part in the book, I was like, oh, he's right, but he's an asshole. And I think that's makes for interesting storytelling if you feel that way about people that are kind of supposed to be your protagonists. So as we have more raising stakes here, I've got 15, 18. What did I miss? Dixie Lee, Isaiah. Oh, war hero, Dixie's trial. Whoops, okay. So I just need to break this up more. This goes to 16, 17. And then we go to 18, 19, I think is what I had it broken out as. Let's see, 18, 19. But I like so far what we have here is all still very faithful. I'm including every chapter in one way or the other, which is exciting because I want it to be as accurate as possible, as similar as possible. Otherwise, I should just write my own story, right? So 18, 19, we've got growing the paper. I'll keep that beat in there. I really want that to kind of be a reoccurring, like this is her baby, that she almost like raises this baby more than her own babies in a way. Sim and Ruby, that will be important later. They're kind of falling in love, and she's a little bit not wanting to face it. At that point, I feel like I need to include Donna's exploits, but let's see if I include it later. Pineapple and marshmallow. That's what I was talking about before. Ask whether a proprietor and editor. I don't explicitly have it in here, so I'll have to see when that happens. I have the book itself up as well, so maybe I can be... Let me think. Preview. Okay. Sorry, I know you're not seeing this, but I can start to pull it up. Donna... painted, it was before that. This is, she basically, so this is at 23. Okay, so we can wait a little bit on that. But eventually her daughter, so her second child, is going to basically go after marrying the richest man in town. And Saber's kind of shocked by that, but she knows what she wants and she goes for it. So I do want to kind of involve that as I'm talking about the older brother there, but we can put that in its own time. So the other thing I noted was pineapple and marshmallow. Like I said, he comes back drunk, she's had an awful day, and he leaves again. But then there's this big moment where she then goes and rescues her boy Sim, because he goes off onto a ritual with the Native Americans where he's on some form of drug, and Saul drives like hours out of town to bring him home. So it's not a very fun scene or a satisfying scene, but it is, I think, important. So let's see if that's exactly where 19 ends up, because that's where like her husband's leaving her boy is zonked out of his mind, and she's, here we go. I've had it all. I've borne it. Nothing more can happen to me now. So I think that's definitely important. I'm going to add that in here. I know I didn't add as much detail, so I'm not going to blame myself for not having it on the note card. I hadn't really finished that process. So Saul helps her rescue Sim. So again, leading up to her having a little bit of frustration when it's like, all right, we're getting married. She's like, after all I've been through. So after that, we've got oil. That is a big part. So I think this has to be in nearing Bobby runs away at one point. Gold digger. I did have it in here. Well, okay, so let me just write down some of these beats first of all, and then we can figure out when I switch my color over. So 20, we have oil. Lots of people striking rich. Wealthy Indians. They're having some fun. She kind of thinks of them as like they're lazy. They don't do anything. They sit around. As we heard from Sim's words in the last video, like he's like, we broke their spirit, but then they get rich and they start driving around fancy cars, and sometimes they'll crash the cars and just go back and buy another car. Like that's how it describes their wealth. So she can kind of observe this as it's happening. But this is something that both movies kind of skirt around the issue. Like the new movie kind of makes it seem like, no, I'm a rich man, this other guy, and I stole all their land anyway, so they won't get any money. And Yancey gets really mad about that. But they get plenty of money in real life, so I'm not really sure why the movie skirts it like that and doesn't really bring it up ever again. But let's let the Native Americans have their due here. They do make quite a bit of money in oil. He comes back from Alaska. I wrote Alaska withered, so that's like I was saying, she knows that he's going to come back a little less attractive each time. Not in a superficial way, but like he's just wearing himself out, and this is what he's choosing to do. He's not staying at home where he could be protected and loved. He's choosing to go and go off on the next adventure. Big theme. So I'm going to keep that in there because I know what that means. And then he comes back, and I'll put this in there too. This is where he like kind of drags her out of the house to be like, as long as my name is above that door, I can write whatever I want. And he writes stuff that's very pro-Native American. And she's just like, you know what, I am probably never going to take his name off. So what can you do? So continuing on, we got 21. Here we have Death of Dixie. Absolutely devastating. I know we're definitely getting into like our blues and purples here, but I'm going to get the notes in first. Saul expands. He does very well for himself. I just don't know how much I need to like insert him in prior parts. He has like starts out with like a little cart and then eventually works his way up to having like the biggest department store. So, and at one point he's getting harassed, and Yancey goes in to save him. So let me do a quick search in the book here, see if I can find out where some early stuff. Oh, I can't forget. 23 is when she talks about her other husband. So I guess I'll just make a note here. Add in Saul and 6. That's important. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. So Saul's expanding, so we can come back to him later, of course. Okay, notes. So Gold Digger, I wrote about her daughter. So she wants to marry the richest man in town. She marries the richest man in town. Bada bing, bada boom. 22, wedding of Sim, which his mother is not all that happy about, and they know it. And her husband's kind of like, girl, like, can you stop? Can you, like those memes now, or those TikToks where people like put a emoji over their face to make them smile because you can't hide your expression. That kind of thing. That moment happens here. And 23, stuff about being governor. So I guess she gets the governorship, I think. Stuff about her daughter and their connection. Governor Sabra. Good for her. Governor. Yes. Looks like I didn't have a ton of notes on that one. And now getting into 24. And we can see what else we still need to have in here. 24 is the statue. And 25 is our sleep for Yancey. the restless one finally gets his sleep. So, distinguishing now, this is where I was kind of saying this might be kind of quick towards the end, but it would be black, which of course I can't have be black. And now I hate how that looks. Do I have some different purples? Can we do a different purple? Different purples. Or do we do it pink just to differentiate? Oh, decisions. I guess that does make it kind of full circle-y, doesn't it? All right, we'll go with that for now. So kind of a hot pink, and they're in that order on Google, so that's fine. Statue. That's kind of the set piece, but that's probably could include some of this stuff as our final sections. Oh, can't really see that so good. Let's do a lighter blue. So at what point does it go from raising the stakes to Bobby runs away? I think all in here is definitely Bobby runs away, because she's seeing her like kind of life change. He's literally not even there for a lot of this, but he is there for the wedding of Sam, which makes it kind of annoying. I think raising the stakes. Oh, the back hurts. Tragedy of Isaiah. Okay, so this is starting to get a little bit different from what I had in the outline on the left here. Returns to Dixie was leaving the stakes, but there's a lot happening in Bobby runs away. Because what I had here is basically like war hero Dixie. This happens before this. That's really sad. So, death of Isaiah is before the trial of Dixie Lee. I didn't realize that. Nancy leaves. Death of Isaiah. Nancy returns. That's certainly raising some stakes. So I didn't really make that very specific here. Bobby runs away. To me, that's going to be a lot of this stuff, you know? I feel like there's a turning point here with that Saul rescue, where she's just like, I've been through everything. I can't be through anything more. But does that mean it's... This is tricky. What seems like our Act 3, you know? I certainly don't think it's... I think it's going to be about here, where we have... Oh, wait, this should be purple. It should be straight up purple. That's why that wasn't looking right. Oop. Purple. That's kind of hard to see. But I think there's a big difference from here to here. I mean, because it kind of feels like Bobby runs away is like this whole last scene of her husband leaving again. So this stuff in here, this 20 to 22, is almost like hard for me to place, kind of. Sam gets married, his wife gets married. Like, there's just going to be the passage. Like, this story covers a lot of time, ultimately, and it kind of starts to, like, speed up as time goes on. Like, this, honestly, could probably be, like... I almost feel like this could all be comma apart, you know? We got wealthy Indians, they strike oil, he's Alaska withered, but he's still the proprietor and editor. Like, he has a scene where he's like, I got gold, and like, look how much is in my hand. You know, like, I want this to kind of take up less space visually, because I think temporally it will need to as well. Death of Dixie is really sad. Gold Digger, Wedding of Sin, this all kind of can kind of lump together too. I mean, it's not like I can't have it be entered down, but I just feel like these will be pretty quick ideas. This is more of something I could see being like a whole moment, you know? So for these columns, let me think. Settling in, fun and games. What's fun and games? Fun and games is settling in, women's club, people being abused, back to Wichita, the kids shootout, restlessness, Yancey leaving, raising the stakes. So Dixie Lee, Tragedy of Isaiah, that fits. War hero, Dixie trial, growing the paper, Cimarron ruby, pineapple and marshmallow, Saul helps her out. Yeah, okay. So then I think this chunk is going to be our kind of pre third act, like into the third act piece. This Bobby runs away. And then as it kind of goes into our set piece here into joyful defeat, yeah, so I don't know exactly what that act 3 turning point is, because like I said, it then starts to cover a lot more history, but I think this is a really good rough version of this. So for an example, and now I feel like I need to give Saul his due, so let me go back here to my notes. I'm just bad at Roman numerals, so sorry about that. So right before chapter 12 then, we have this line where he's like, yeah, okay, so harassment of, I already had it as anti-Semitism with Saul. Dear God, okay. This was a lot of wasted time, I apologize. Let's see if I can go in and cut all this out. Okay, so, realized I'd already had the Saul part here, so just cut it out of the top there. So now going back, let's see here, to our outline. I wasted so much time trying to find that other thing. And it was in the wrong place anyway. So we want freeform up, and we want our Google Notes right here. So, dinner at the Venables. Mother Bridget going out west. Arrival. Newspaper. Pegler in the church. Settling in. Women's club. Back to Wichita. Yancey leaves. So then I guess back to Wichita / shootout. Kids shootout. Yancey leaves. So I have Yancey leaving as the end of Fun and Games, which I think is fair. So now, just making this a little more accurate to our other outline, death of Isaiah. So Yancey returns to Dixie's trial. Growing the paper. Sam and Ruby. Saul. Saul escape. Saul rescue, we'll call it that, just to remember what that moment is. And then we've got oil, death of Dixie. Oil, wealthy Indians. I mean, it could be a quick scene, but I just don't want to cut it like every other version did. Death of Dixie. Alaska weather. Death of Dixie. Saul expands. So that'll be great to kind of show his first experience, really roughing it out there in the wilderness, to then having this huge, like he's one of like the tallest buildings in the town by the end, like a skyscraper basically. Gold Digger and Wedding of Sin. Is that really before? Oh, so it must just come back to it later. She's like, I'm going to get married to the richest man ever. Also, you should talk to Sam because he seems to be like spending a lot of time with Ruby. Excuse me. So, yeah, Governor Sabra. Governess, Governor Sabra. And accolades and the statue, and then sleep for Yancey. So, I mean, it's a pretty hearty act too, but I think this definitely can work. So if I were to try to put in a couple of these beats, let's now think of it laterally here. Showing the problem. I think I want to take a little space from this and come back to it, because then I think it'd be kind of fun to go into a little more detail, flip a little bit closer to the books. Maybe I'll have the book out as well in my next time going through this, and start filling in some of these spaces. But I feel like this is a good break point. So thanks for hanging out with me. We'll see you on the next one.